future so bright, I got to wear shades. What's up, fishing fanatics? Jeff Rogers back. Wait, let me take these things off so I don't look silly. I just want to tell you guys that this video is going to be a video that should have just comment after comment after comment. It should look like a bass fishing forum by the time you guys get done. I want to hear how it happened, what happened, and who did it. I want to hear it all. What I'm getting at is I've never seen a video on this, and I want you guys to tell me if you've been through this, and if you have, what happened. And as some of you guys know, I have played music all over the country, and I get done playing music, and somebody will come up to me and say, they'll go, man, with you singing, Black and Blue or Lonely Stranger or Look at Me, man, songwriting must be your major passion. That must be the thing you just live for. And I kind of go, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. I mean, is it something I enjoy? Sure. Is it a great release to get, my thoughts and my feelings and my observations down on paper and perform it to people? Sure. Is it my major passion or my only passion? No, I don't think so. I mean, I love throwing some clothes on my Harley and blasting down the interstate as hard as I can go. Well, I'm kind of passionate about that. You can tell I love hockey, love my Nashville Predators, and I consider that a passion of mine. I study the players and their shot percentages and all kind of stuff. But my major passion, my real passion, is bass fishing. And when I say that, I get these looks right here. Bass fishing is your major passion. What in the world is so cool about bass fishing that is your passion? And I love it when they ask that, because I get it. I get what they're imagining in their mind, what the perception of a bass fisherman is. They think of a guy that threw a bobber out in the water, and he's about half asleep, and he's got a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and he is about to fall asleep waiting on something to bite that hook that's floating out in the middle of the water. Well, fishing fanatics, you know as well as I do, that's not how we fish. That's just not how it's done. So whenever that kind of perception is brought to me, this is what I say back to them. Well, it's like this, man. I love studying the migrational patterns of bass and how barometric pressure and lunar phases and water temperature and water clarity and sunlight and waves and vegetation and food supply, they all play into the migrational patterns of bass, where they go in the lake, where you can find them, where you're likely to find them. And then, man, I'm a student of the scientific studies on how the bass's optical receptacles, better known as the eyes, check out the colors, different colors, how they are seen in certain sunlight and certain water clarity. If you've never seen those studies, you really should check them out, because you can learn a lot about that. And just the fact that a little bitty bass egg laying on the bottom of a lake, the odds of that egg actually hatching is astronomical. That it doesn't get eaten by a brim or some other kind of fish. And then when they're born, man, they're this long, which is perfect food size for a freshwater fish. So the fact that you're sitting there holding a monster, 4, 5, 6, 7 pound bass, and to realize that that bass has survived, man. That bass is a fighter. That bass is now the predator. Bass are definitely predators. Check it out. It's pretty exciting how they feed, how they just annihilate their food. But it took them so much to get to that point. And then you get into tens of thousands of lures, almost unimaginable amounts of lures. And each one of those lures has 5, 6, 7, 10 techniques that you use with each one of those lures. And you need to know most of them, or at least the ones that work for you, which takes a lot of time and effort and study and reading and watching and learning. And fishermen tend to learn from each other. You know, I mean, just think about rods. How many rod sizes, rod actions, the different feels of a rod as you're bringing stuff through the water. And you need to know which rod to use with certain techniques. Reels, you got every kind of reel you can imagine that have different gear ratios, they have different things that they do for certain techniques. Then you got to figure out which line to use for the best line for what technique. Then you get into electronics. Well, man, I watch that guy on Fish the Moment all the time. You know, I'm a YouTube junkie too, just like you guys. I ain't crazy. I learned like that too. And the guy that does Fish the Moment knows what he's talking about. He has saved me numerous hours of sitting there looking at a screen, not knowing what I'm looking at. And he's taught me what to look at. And that's what I mean. The fishing community learns from each other. If I tell you something on this channel, it is what I know to work to the best of my ability. Then you get to something like boats. Boats, man, I don't have an $80,000 boat, but there are bass boats out there that are $80,000 to $100,000, and man, they're just dressed out with everything: power poles, spot lock, all that stuff. Man, I can't afford that stuff. I'm a broke musician. I mean, think about it. But when you get into the boats, you have to know how to maintain them. You have to know how to haul them. You have to know how to drive them. You have to know how to back a trailer. You have to know how to launch a boat, how to put a boat back on the trailer, how to position a boat while you're fishing, how to safely operate a boat. It's a lot, man. It's a whole lot. I'm just going to say that you never, ever, 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 ever stop learning. And that's the beautiful thing about bass fishing, is you never stop learning. Ever. I will say this: some of the smartest people that I know personally are bass fishermen. I guarantee you they've studied the science behind all of it. And it's a beautiful thing. They're just as passionate as I am. When I say fishing fanatics, I know fishing fanatics. They come up to me and say, "Hey man, I watch your videos and I'm a fishing fanatic." Cool, man. I am too. I'm one too. But think about it. Think about the bass fishermen that do it for a living. I mean, look at Kevin Van Dam. Man, that's a sharp cookie right there. I mean, just listen to him for 10 minutes talking about bass fishing. He's really studied it. Look at Iaconelli. Look at Edwin Evers. Man, I mean, man, those guys know. Stetson Blaylock, one of the premier sight fishermen in the world. In the world. That didn't happen overnight. He's been doing that stuff since he was 12 years old. And I'm sure he studies it on a regular basis. You look at people like Art Defoe and Andy Montgomery and Jacob Wheeler. My personal favorite, Rick Clunn. Rick Clunn is a marine biologist. A marine biologist, dude. He's bright. He's a bright dude. He studied bass fishing all his life. Hank Cherry, Jason Christie, those guys are bright, dude. They're bright, real bright. Take somebody like a really good example. It is Gerald Swindle. Gerald Swindle, when you hear Gerald Swindle talk, you think, man, that dude ain't got a brain in his head. He's the mouth of the South, the pimp with the limp. He cracks me up. Man, his speech at the Bassmaster Classic had me laughing so hard I couldn't hardly sit there. I was laughing so hard. But go to one of his seminars. You'll know in 10 minutes. He's a smart cookie. He is not just smart, he's extremely bright. And his outlook on life is different than most people because he's worked and struggled and everything else to get to where he's at, and he doesn't take not 1 inch of it, not 1 ounce of it for granted. And you realize you don't become 2-time Bass Angler of the Year, 2 times, without being pretty doggone bright, and he definitely is that. He's smart like a fox because he's made millions talking like that. Through the years. He's got numerous fans and numerous sponsors, and he speaks from the heart. You cannot be a bass fisherman, a successful bass fisherman, or at least one that is better than your average fisherman, unless you have passion for the sport. You got to always learn. Always learn. Be sure, if you have not subscribed to this channel, there's a subscribe button right down there, right here somewhere. Should be, or right over here one. And just look for it. It's there. Hit that subscribe button. It'll automatically subscribe. You don't have to look for it after you get off the page. And put in the comments if this has happened to you. I bet it's happened to a bunch of you fishing fanatics, because I would bet that several of you are extremely smart. I know that I go fishing with Don or Shane, and man, do they outfish me every time? No. But man, those guys know what they're talking about because they've studied it. I've been fishing longer than either one of them, but it's what you retain and what you use in that retention that makes the difference in catching fish and not catching fish. When they say something, I listen. I know they have studied as hard or harder than I have, and between the two of us, we're probably going to catch some fish. Let me know if it's happened to you. thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all you guys from the bottom of my heart. I've got some huge news coming up in a few videos from now. I'm about to head to Texas next week. Gonna go fishing with my son, so those videos will be coming out. You guys be watching for it. I'm super excited about heading out there and seeing him and spending Thanksgiving with him. So you guys be watching out for those videos, and I've got some huge news coming up probably around mid-December or so. But man, you guys just don't know how much I appreciate you watching, commenting, telling me when I'm out fishing. Dude, I see your videos. I just love it. Makes my whole day. I appreciate you. I love you. We'll see you soon.
But for me, it's riding motorcycles in the Alabama mountains, or fishing with my boys